I am Vinnie Tortorich. Folks, your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, just like No, not Gina. You'll be lean and mean like Teresa Strasser. Yeah, she's in here today. And we'll explain why we had to, sorry, Charlie, for the imposition, but I got a phone call the other day from the beautiful Miss Gina Grad, and she, this is one of those things you love to hear, actually. Gina, she couldn't come on the show to even say goodbye because it's almost like radio. By the way, folks, we have better than Gina. We have new Gina, better known as Teresa Strasser. How you doing, Teresa?
Vinnie, first of all, thank you for having me. Second of all, there is no better than Gina. There's just different. And frankly, we're not that different.
No, you guys are, in my eyes, you're very different. But as I said to you off the air, I had to rejuvenate. I had to find a new Jewish co-host. And you graciously said, hey, I'll fill in and do what you need me to do right now. And I'm very happy about that.
It's a mitzvah.
Yeah, it is a mitzvah, and we'll explain what that means in a second. But here's the deal. I'm very happy for Gina because Gina is now on, what would you say? What is Woody, the Woody Show? Maybe the second biggest?
I don't know. When she told me about it, I looked it up, and it seems that he's very successful. I think he's on FM, but then also YouTube.
Well, everybody. It's kind of like he's kind of like Howard Stern, but maybe not quite as big as Howard Stern. So
right, like is it syndicated? We should know this.
I think it's syndicated, and her contract said because it's on iHeart, which is an app. They went, wait a minute, you're on a different podcast. We can't have you on two podcasts. So since they were able to pay more than me, we lost Gina, and I'm very happy for Gina. And
same.
Yeah, but we're going to miss her around here. Teresa, she came to mind right away, and here's why. And Teresa's not agreed to sign on or do anything yet, but she said, you know what, let's do a bunch of shows and see what happens. So that's what we're doing, a few shows here. I could go I'm going to be honest with you. There are two other women, Teresa. Mm-hmm. One of them, I call these, I shouldn't say this because I know she's going to hear the show. One of them is NFL sideline candy, as I call them. Mm-hmm. The really hot women that talk to the players in between, everything. Sure. They're on the sideline with the mics.
Right. Giving you injuries on updates and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. Or asking about, are you really dating Swift or whoever, whatever they do. I call them annoyances because I want to watch the game. I don't need to know what's happening on the sideline. It's not that it's women, because women are very good in the booth every time they've had a woman in the booth. And I actually like the fact that they have women on the field as referees. I love all of the women's stuff. I just don't need to know that level of what's going on. I want to watch the game. I guess I'm old school. Call me Gran Torino. But I want to see the game. I don't want to hear about, you're out of the game. I know you're out of the game because they didn't put you back in.
No, right? I understand. And sometimes you just need to yell at people to get off your lawn.
And I do quite often. And, I don't smoke, but I have a collection of Zippo lighters. Go figure. I do. I probably have 40 Zippo lighters. And people say to me, you don't smoke. It's like, yeah, but it reminds me of my grandfather or something. I don't know. I have a bunch of them.
I don't think I've seen a Zippo lighter or held one in my hand in multiple decades.
I have a solid brass one I'm looking at right over there on the table.
Vinnie, back in my ballerina days, I definitely enjoyed a Benson Hedges menthol ultralight in a box. To keep myself at that ballerina weight, not a great idea for your health, as you well know.
I tell people all the time, and I am not promoting tobacco use in any way, shape, or form here. We were much healthier and much skinnier when we smoked. And when doctors recommended to women who want to lose weight after pregnancy and athletes, if you go back and watch football games from the mid 70s, the great Jack Lambert, you would see him on the way to the locker room at Pittsburgh with a cigarette in his hand. Cigarettes. These guys would go in at halftime and smoke.
I mean, I feel like there was definitely a lot of smokers in baseball and a lot of drinkers.
Baseball is heavy drinking, very heavy drinking, right? Lot of alcohol abuse in all sports, especially, look, even when we got to college, a lot of the guys, I'm fit, I'm 62 coming up. I still haven't smoked my first reefer cigarette. I still
You have
haven't
not
smoked.
enjoyed really?
I've never eaten it. I've never partaken in any. The closest I've ever gotten to smoking a joint was the pass along to the next guy. I'm not, uncool. I've been around. Hell, Mike Dawson is a friend of mine. You get high and you get the munchies by smelling his beard, right?
Well, I mean, if you're in his car, I mean, I think that's going to count.
Yeah, that's got to count as I've lived inside of a bong, but I don't think I've ever been in Mike's truck. No, I've had a lot of friends and I played college ball. These guys, a lot of the guys took care of the pain at night with marijuana. It's a common thing, and alcohol. I've never been much on either one of them, but athletes, hell, we were talking the other night, Teresa, about the show Receiver on Netflix. Have you started yet?
No, but it's on my list and I can't wait because we talked about this, but quarterback, so good.
Receiver even better than quarterback.
I feel like, do you know Patrick Mahomes' trainer that's featured in quarterback?
No, I don't know him personally. No, I don't.
What do you think of the routine, the regimen that was featured? I could not believe how specific those exercises were to what Mahomes does in a game.
It all matters, and you're going to see a lot of that in this show. One of the biggest characters in Receiver, but I want to just mention something about Receiver. We were talking. I don't want to get too far because you and I can get too far along. That's our problem. The other night, Teresa and I spoke for probably 2 hours, and we can meander. It's bad.
Well, we had to discuss our shared love of 80s movies, Footloose, 16 Candles.
Yes.
Flashdance.
Flashdance. Thank you. And I've seen all three in the past year. Thank you very much. All of the guys in the pros now, you'll see them after the game if they win. They all have cigars in their mouth, right? They all smoke cigars.
In football.
The NBA. All of those guys, if you watch that, I don't know if you saw the series on Netflix about Jordan and the Bulls.
Yeah, of course. He's
What
got
are
a
those
cigar
guys
the whole
doing
time.
after every game? Yeah, the whole time. He's got a cigar, but when they're playing, they're all smoking in the locker room. I don't think people realize how prevalent smoking still is in sports.
That's a very interesting point. I feel like anybody who smokes now that's in the public eye is very careful to do it privately.
You know who Joe Cool is, right? The quarterback.
Yes.
All right. He was playing at LSU. And when they won the national championship that year, before he became a pro, at the end of the game, they went to the locker room. All the guys had cigars, right? And there was hubbub over that. And it's like, well, what do you think these guys do? Everyone wants to think they're like they are in a Gatorade commercial, right? But they're not.
Right.
They're real people. They just have to be, they are really good at what they do. And I'm not proud of this. I guess we're going to be talking about tobacco today. I never know what we're going to talk about, but it's tobacco. When I was a kid, I was very impressionable. And I know you have 2 kids that play sports.
Yep.
Baseball was a big thing in my hometown, really big. A couple of guys made it to the show. Jacques Alexander, for one, made it. He was younger than me. But he ended up in the same bullpen as Nolan Ryan in Texas, right? All of us started chewing tobacco when we were 11 or 12 because it was part of baseball. It was part of what the older kids were doing. We're in the under leagues. We started chewing tobacco. I was more with the big chaw, the big chunk in the side. A lot of guys did the dip. Now I got into the dip, because nicotine is nicotine. Nicotine in and of itself is kind of like caffeine. It's just a stimulant. But tobacco will kill you. Tobacco will cause cancer, mouth cancer, what have you, or if you smoke it into your lungs, lung cancer. So folks, nicotine is not the killer. It's the tobacco. It's the delivery system that will kill you, right? So don't do it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Don't. And by the way, I know I'm not Gina, but I do have some health news if you want to get into it at any
Let's
point.
do it. Let's do it now.
Okay, so I know that in the field you're in, you have probably talked about weight loss drugs a lot,
Mm-hmm.
semaglutides and the like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your stance is, but I assume that maybe I don't know maybe I can't even assume.
Well,
I
let's try. What do you think my stance is?
I feel like your stance is everybody should employ diet and exercise, no sugar, no grain, like your hat.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need a weight loss drug, if you've really been struggling with severe obesity, it's
Mm-hmm.
something to try, but ultimately you're going to have to get a handle on your diet and exercise. Am I close?
It's hard to be close on how I feel about GLP-1s.
Okay.
Here's why. So I'm glad that you don't know much about me because we can discover this stuff over and over again on the show, right? So here's my stance. People ask why I'm so, it's like, Vinny, you're lean and ripped and all this kind of stuff. And why are you so passionate, I guess you can say, about weight loss and health? I don't know why, but one of the clues is everyone in my family is morbidly obese or was at one time. Some of them have lost weight. My mother now weighs as much as she weighed in high school, 121. She is 85 years old. She danced at her grandson's wedding last year in August at this time. At one time, I could show you pictures of me and my mom over there right when she was leaving teaching. So she was like 60 at the time. She's a good 2.25, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So my mom, she's only 5'5". She's a little short Italian woman. And she got up to 225 at one point. That's linebacker size. Okay.
For real. And I know you're one of 4 boys, right?
That's correct. And all of my brothers over the years have put on weight. So I guess they're all legally morbidly obese. My youngest brother, who at one time, he was the one I was on the phone with earlier today. At one time, he was built. It was as if a human flesh and bones can look like the statue of David. That was my younger brother, Mark. He was a better athlete than me. He was more highly recruited than me. Everything about Mark was better than me. He didn't want to play college ball, circumstances, he didn't want to go to college. He opted out and immediately started gaining weight. In his 20s, Mark is 53, 54, something like that. Mark, I don't think has been under 300 pounds at all in his from his mid 20s through 54. Every now and then he'll get down to 290, but he'll go back up to 340 in 2 seconds. I have a sister-in-law who is as close to a sister as one can have. Brenda and I went to first grade together. She married my brother when she was 17. She got pregnant. They have 2 wonderful kids, right? My sister-in-law has fought weight issues her entire life. Now, recently I've noticed that she's lost weight. I didn't ask her because I didn't want to jinx whatever she was doing. I was just happy to see that she was losing weight. It made me feel good. It made my heart feel good. And then I found out she was taking semaglutides. Am I mad at her? No. I'm happy that her joints are in pain all the time from carrying that weight. I want her to keep losing weight. The problem with GLP-1s, the semaglutides, is that at first, when people started taking them for weight loss, the early studies I was getting is that they were taking about 40% muscle with the fat. Now, let me give you what that means, other Gina, Teresa. Sorry. When we lose weight, let's say you were morbidly obese and you lost 100 pounds. Somewhere between 15 and 20% of that, if you lost it naturally, would come from muscle loss, and along with muscle loss, soft tissue and some bone. Okay, but it's mostly muscle. So if you lost 100 pounds, 15 or 20 of those pounds would be muscle. So that's why I tell people as soon as you can start moving around, lifting some weights, doing whatever, going to the gym and just moving, getting up and walking, doing something to help you keep that muscle on, that's a good thing. If you're on a GLP-1, a semaglutide, it's so important that you start exercising, folks. Please hear what I'm saying, because at first we thought it was 30 or 40%, which is terrible. But now we learned with a short, small study that it was 50%. And now I just heard last week where it could be up to 60% muscle if you're doing this long term, right? Can you imagine? 50 or 60. So if you lose 100 pounds, 50 pounds of that is muscle. Don't forget, folks, your heart is a muscle. You could be damaging your heart. And that's why I say we don't know what the long-term effects of these semaglutides are. Am I not happy for my sister-in-law? I'm over the moon because I've wanted her to lose weight for the past 30 years. I'm glad for her. And I'm happy for anyone who's losing weight on this stuff, but you can't be blind to what's happening. Is that the answer you thought you were going to get?
I feel like that's pretty in line with what I thought. If you have been taking one of these blockbuster weight loss drugs, something that we've all heard about is that they're hard to come by and that they're expensive. NBC News and everybody else is reporting today that Eli Lilly has slashed prices on two of their lowest doses of a drug called Zepbound, but you have to be willing to give up the injector pen. That's how they made it cheaper. So they are lowering the prices of these two lowest doses, and how they're making it cheaper might not appeal to everybody, but basically they had these single injection pens, and if you want this cheaper dosage, you're going to have to draw the medication out of a vial. So, under the new pricing plan, a 1 month supply of the low dose, that's 2.5 milligrams, is going to cost $399 a month, while the 5 milligram dose will be $549. That's down from a monthly list price of $1,059, regardless of the dosage. These lower cost doses will be offered only through Lilly's telehealth platform, which is called Lilly Direct. However, they will not be covered by insurance, meaning patients will need to pay for them in cash. So
Is,
this is
is the
good, but
other
still
one?
$400 is better than $1,000.
It is, but let me ask this: is the one that's in the, as I call it, the EpiPen version, is that one covered by insurance, or is that one also not covered?
That's a great question. Those auto injector pens, it seems like they're covered, like depending on the weight loss drug, it seems like they're covered in if you have diabetes, type 1 or type 2, but not for weight loss. And Zepbound is actually considered a weight loss drug. So I think it really depends on the specific weight loss drug and your specific insurance. But I don't think I realized that it was, I mean, I knew it was expensive, but even at this low cost, $5,000 a year is out of reach for a lot of people. I mean, that's a lot of money to pay.
It
Um,
is. It really is. And look, I would automatically say, if you weigh less, then you have less health problems. So maybe insurance should cover this. But even in my movie that's out right now, my new movie, Dirty Keto, even though it wasn't about this drug, I put a little section in there with Dr. Ben Bigman, who has been around the GLP-1 world for years, long before anyone knew what it meant. And he'll be the first to tell you that they're not the best way to go. And there are other problems. There is no free lunch, as Dr. Drew always says. There's no free lunch. You will pay the piper somewhere else. And I just want people to realize that when they go into the GLP-1s, that number one, you can, if you do something like Atkins, or I call it NSNG, or you could call it keto, you call it whatever the hell you want, low carb diets, you can get the same effect and you're not paying anything and you're only losing 20% of your muscle. The other thing that Dr. Bickman said in my movie is that these drugs will generate more fat cells in your body. So, Gina, do you know how we get fat normally? Do you know how that works?
I'm gonna let you
Gina,
call me
I'll be
Gina because
Gina.
I'm flattered.
Okay,
I'm flattered.
Teresa, I'm going to call you
Um,
Gina for about
how
5 shows.
how do
You need to do 6 shows with me.
how do we get fat? We intake more calories than we burn.
Well, I can make an argument about that. But no, what I meant to say was when we get fat, we don't get more fat cells. Okay.
Right, right. The fat cells we have just get plumper.
Right. We just fill out and if you take someone as skinny as you are and maximized each one of your fat cells, you can weigh probably 700 pounds. And how tall are you?
5'6".
5'6". Yeah, you can get 700 pounds out of you if you maximized all of your fat
Well,
cells.
then at least I could get my own TLC show again.
You got to get past 1,000, baby, to get a show like that. My
Or
600 pound life is
I
old
could
hat.
have, like, a 500-pound tumor. That'll get
Yeah,
me
that's another way to go. Are we talking like a goiter that's 500 pounds? And where would
Yeah,
it be? Yeah.
yeah,
Mm,
right? Like, if you have a 500-pound tumor, you're gonna get your own TLC show.
yeah. But is that what you really want, a TLC show?
Maybe I should rethink.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
rethink. You,
Rethink.
young lady, you
Going
need
back.
to sit around and rethink. But think about this. What Ben Bigman is saying is for the first time in your life, if you're taking this drug, it will remodel your cells to now make more fat cells. So once you have to go off of these drugs, now you have more fat cells that can all be expanded. So if
I
you
am
don't,
so curious how this is gonna turn out later. Like, I don't judge anybody for doing it, and also, there are so many health risks associated with being obese, as better than most, between what's happening to your joints, your heart, your life expectancy, longevity, you're at increased risk for so many kinds of cancers. So, I I would think that for many people, this is an excellent option, but we really don't know. Although a lot of these drugs have been around a long time for diabetes, which brings me to another point about the cost. So Bernie Sanders, as you probably know, has been shouting from the rooftops about these big pharmaceutical companies charging so much money for things. So obviously he's come out and praised Eli Lilly for taking what he calls a modest step forward, but he did criticize other moves by the drug maker, including raising the cost of Zepbound for patients on its assistance program and not lowering the price of a diabetes drug called Mounjaro, which you've probably heard of. Now, this is going to blow your mind, okay? Bernie Sanders made this point. I'm quoting him. There is no rational reason other than greed why Mounjaro should cost $1,069 a month in the United States, but just $485 in the United Kingdom and $94 in Japan.
yeah, because we have such a screwed up system. And if Bernie Sanders wants to point fingers, he needs to take his finger and point it right back at him and all of his
Wait, i-
cronies.
is he wearing his mittens though when he's pointing?
Does he wear mittens? I don't know.
Yeah, the knit mittens, that's like a famous Bernie meme.
You see, you would be shocked. I am pretty Gran Torino. I don't know all of this stuff, but all politicians, I always say this, and it makes me sound like I need a tinfoil hat. But if you're in the Senate or you're a representative, and I don't care if you're on the right or the left, all of these people go into office with these jobs that pay less than $100,000 a year, and they all leave rich. The reason they do so is they get money from teachers' unions. They get money from the NRA, the right and the left, both gets it from the NRA. They get it from Big Food and Big Pharma. I just named all of them. These are the biggest lobbyist groups that all of these people end up with houses in the Hamptons and this and that and the whole thing. They're all on the make, every single one of them. And Bernie is no different. Bernie's never had a real job, and the man is worth millions and millions of dollars. Where did that come from? Where did it come from? So he needs to point fingers at him. And by the way, folks, I don't talk politics here. This is just government. All of these people, I don't care what side you think you're on. I always make the point, you ever notice not one gun law ever gets changed when Democrats are in office? They talk about the AR-15 a lot, but nothing happens. Why is that? Obama was in office for 8 years. Biden's been in office for 4 years. That's 12 years. Not one gun law has been changed while they have been running the world. Why not? Because they take as much money from the NRA as everyone else. Now, take that and multiply it by 1 million when it comes to food and drugs and everything else. All of these GLP-1s, Teresa, all of these GLP-1s are exactly the same drug. The only thing that's different is the dose and the carrying, so, like the pens and the whole thing. That's where they have design patents on all that kind of crap. So it's how it goes in. It's the dosage. Wegovy is the highest dosage. Metformin is one of the lower doses. Mounjaro is right in between.
Metformin is one of those drugs that's been around forever.
They all have been. But here's the deal. I always tell people, watch the commercials. You ever watch the commercials?
Oh, when they warn you about all the things that could happen?
No, before the warning. They tell you something that's very telling before the warning. They'll say, take metformin or take Mounjaro. Take this drug and lower your A1Cs to as low as 7. You can get an A1C of 7. You're still perfectly sick. You don't come out of type 2 diabetes until you're below 5.6. So 5.5 is pre-diabetic. So they're saying, hey, take our drug and you'll still be perfectly sick, right? If they said, take our drug and we can get you below 5.6, now you're curing someone. You know who can do that? Anyone who's telling you to go low carb. Because I have no shortage of probably 5,000 people who have had A1Cs of 12, tried every drug in the world, can never get below 8 on a drug, but decided to cut out all carbs, and now they're at 4.9, and their doctor will tell them, well, you're still type 2 diabetic, even though all of your symptoms are gone, and even though your A1Cs are now below 5.6, but we're going to still say you're type 2 diabetic. Why is that? Why do they do that? We could do it without drugs. The drugs will not do it. They will get you as low as 7. They tell you that in the ad, right? If they're telling you that in the ad, they're going, hey, if I said to you, let's say when you were a teenager, Teresa, and you had zits you have zits when you were a teenager?
Gina, thank you very much.
Gina, I got your name right for once. It's not like it's not staring me right in the face here. Did you have zits when you were a teenager?
Actually, I had like really bad acne and went on Accutane.
Okay. Did Accutane work?
It was very effective. I did have to go on it again in my 20s and a third time in my 30s, if you can believe that.
I can. You have great skin. I've been with you in person. I don't know, but when you had it, if you had taken Accutane and it didn't work, they said, "Hey, Teresa, take Accutane for your zits, don't worry, it won't work. Now, here are all the side effects. Would you have taken it?
It's a really difficult drug, and if it wasn't a silver bullet and the last house on the block for me after trying everything else, I wouldn't have done it. I mean, you have to take a pregnancy test every month. You have to test other things in your blood. You become photosensitive. Your lips get dry. So, yeah, no. If they had said this isn't going to work, why
Right. If you
why
saw a
did I
commercial that said, hey, take Accutane, you got to get checked for this, that, and the other thing. You can't go out into the sun. You have to live like a zombie. You wouldn't have taken it if they literally say in the ad, by the way, when you take this, you're going to still have zits. Would you have taken it?
Well, this is a very interesting parallel because a lot of people are real judgmental about Accutane, and they are concerned about the side effects. But if you've ever been in the position of being a teenager or a young adult and having terrible acne, I mean, that's like it's not going to kill you like obesity, but it's pretty damaging from a social and emotional standpoint. So for me, it was worth the risk.
Yeah. So, but you knew it would work, or you had a pretty good reason to think it
It
was going to work, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work for some percentage of people, but it's a pretty small percentage.
Yeah.
Which is true of these semaglutides. I mean, I was just when I was, doing research for your show and reading about it, there are a lot of people who, tried these, various in these class of drugs and it didn't help them. For a lot of people it does. I mean, it's like and if for somebody who's been in that boat, I mean, I think it's a really interesting conversation we're having as a culture because what I've heard a lot of people say, and my whole neighborhood is skinny now. Every mom in my neighborhood is on these semaglutides. But what I've heard people say is that it reduces the food noise. So it's really speaking to the addiction because while we haven't gotten better at treating obesity, doing the things that you tell people to do, the food companies have gotten better at making our food more addicting, finding the sweet and the salt and the fat point that makes you have to like go put your hand back into that Cheez-Its box. I mean, right? So there's something in the brain, and that's why a lot of people on Ozempic, their cravings for alcohol are also reduced. I mean, I don't understand how any of this works. I'm not a doctor, but I understand when people say that it reduces the food noise. Like I used to
Yeah.
only be able to think about what I was going to have for lunch. I couldn't focus on anything else, and now I don't have that. That must be really liberating.
And that's a great thing. But the problem becomes what happens when you go off of the drug?
Well, that's what I've been curious too, because I would think that either you're gonna have to be on it forever or maybe, people go on a maintenance like what I think Oprah's doing. I have no evidence of this, but the way she's talked about it is that she's using it as maintenance. So, like, maybe you're on it for a few weeks and off of it for a few weeks so that it limits the impact on your liver or, however you process these drugs,
Listen,
kidneys.
taking any chemical in your body, we were just talking about it earlier with cigarettes and chewing tobacco and the whole thing, is never a good idea, right? And there is another solution. We can get you, the only way you could, getting food addiction, that's what we talk a lot about on this podcast, food addiction. So if you could get away from the addiction of food by cutting out the thing that makes you want to eat more food,
Right.
then you could fix it without any drugs. But people look at me and go, oh, Vinny, that's too difficult. Really? Your doctor just told you that we're going to have to chop an ankle off if you don't straighten your shit out. And you're saying cutting out Doritos is a step too far? I don't think so. That's a
I'm
problem.
laughing, but this is really I've always wanted people to frame the conversation in terms of addiction because that's really what it is. Like people can be open about an addiction to opiates or alcohol or cocaine or gambling or even sex, but a food addiction is something as a culture that we're not we don't talk like we it's hard to take it seriously, but it's like what you said, people would rather lose a foot than put the Doritos down. Is that somebody's fault or are the Doritos having such a powerful effect on us from a molecular standpoint that we really can't resist them?
If you ever get a chance, read a book called Salt, Sugar, Fat.
I have. Yeah.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
They call it fighting for real estate in your stomach. We'll leave it on this note, folks. Go read Salt, Sugar, Fat. I have no connection to that book. I think it's in the Vinnie Book Club. Go check that out. We talk nothing but addiction on this show all the time. Food is an addiction. I hate sounding like Dr. Phil, but unlike drugs, food is a dog you got to take for a walk 3 times a day. And that's just a fact. You could cut out alcohol because you don't need it for sustenance. You could cut out drugs. You could do all of this stuff and go get yourself in a 12-step program and get your shit straight. You could cut out sex addiction, which is a real thing, by the way, because I've seen a movie on it. So I know it's a real thing. Anything that can fuck up your life like that, but food is an addiction that you have to deal with every day, right? So go get help. Also, since you're going somewhere to get help, if you want to read something really cool, Making It Home by the woman who's on the other mic. You would think that it's a book about baseball. Listen, it's not a book about baseball. She just happens to be at a little league park when she's learning about all of this stuff. She has the death of a brother, her mom dies, and she doesn't know what to do with her dad. So they start watching Little League together and they have a conversation. It's kind of like Tuesdays with Maury. Isn't it kind of like that?
That's a huge compliment. I think that's one of my very favorite books. Yeah, it's a grief book, but it's hopefully got a light touch because, yeah, it's me and my dad, who's a retired mechanic, currently living at Scottsdale's finest trailer park. And he
Yeah.
teaches me everything about baseball and life. And we grieve my brother on the sidelines of one season of Little League. Making It Home is the title of the book. And it's written by me, Gina Grad.
Yeah, Gina Grad wrote it. No, it's Teresa Strasser. Go get it. It's in the Vinnie Book Club. You know what to do. By the way, folks, if you go on Amazon, I have a new documentary out there called Dirty Keto. Go watch it now. Rate it and review it. Look, everyone tells you to rate and review. I'm not fucking kidding. Go rate and review this thing. Sick and tired of this stuff.
Vinny, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me put a fine point on this for you, okay? If
Go
you
on.
appreciate what Vinny does, and I assume that I can watch Dirty Keto either free or for a low cost. Is that true?
Probably less than you can. People go, it's cheaper than Starbucks. It's way cheaper than 1 cup of coffee at Starbucks. It's like $2 or something.
Okay, if you appreciate it, I cannot overstate how much a review affects the algorithm on Amazon. So if you
Yeah.
literally take 5 minutes, you don't even have to write a lengthy review. Just give it 5 stars and go on with your day. That changes the algorithm on Dirty Keto so extensively that it's way more people will be able to find it who need it. You could really help your friend Vinny, and you can help all the people out there that will benefit from going keto.
Exactly. You heard it right here, folks. So on behalf of the other Gina Grad, one Miss Teresa Strasser, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with these 2 guys, Hall and Oates.